Imagine a world where the United States has given up its long-standing position on the global stage. The era of unquestioned dominance is gradually fading, replaced by a dynamic landscape where numerous influential nations share the international limelight. Can Russia and China transform their world-altering dreams into reality? While we hear phrases like global transformation frequently, it conceals a fundamental question. Can our world not only adapt, but flourish in the face of an impending new world order? In the past, a handful of European powers dictated global affairs. Today, it's a much more intricate game, with the United States, China, Russia, and the European Union all vying for the coveted lead role. Picture a world post-World War II, a time when the globe turned its gaze towards the United States for leadership. It was an era in which international institutions, like the United Nations and the World Bank, held American guidance in the highest regard. The United States during the Cold War cemented its authority by forging alliances such as NATO, strategically watching over Russia. Don't overlook the significance of the G7 and G20, where the United States forged robust alliances with its partners. These gatherings served as venues for discussing global matters, ranging from trade regulations to financial supervision. In the latter half of the 20th century, the United States enjoyed a period of unparalleled economic and technological supremacy. However, as the adage goes, all things must eventually run their course. Now let's journey back to 1985, a moment when the world's economic heavyweights convened for an unconventional gathering known as the Plaza Accord. The guest list was very exclusive, comprising the United States, Japan, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Their mission? To confront a brewing economic predicament that had been gathering ripples, the unrelenting ascent of the US dollar. The question arises, why was the strong dollar causing such a stir? The US dollar had been flexing its financial muscles during the early 1980s, gaining significant value. Now you might think a strong dollar is a good thing, but it had consequences. American exports became pricier for other countries, while imports into the US turned into bargain deals. This led to a growing US trade deficit, a cause for concern. So, the Plaza Accord was like a strategy meeting to bring the mighty dollar down a notch. The goal? To devalue the US dollar in comparison to the Japanese yen and the Deutschmark, which were becoming increasingly formidable on the global stage. The Plaza Accord did succeed in its mission, effectively taming the US dollar's strength. However, the world didn't just applaud and move on. This move had a ripple effect on international trade that caught everyone's attention. As the US dollar gracefully descended in value, other countries felt the economic tremors. Suddenly, nations started putting up barriers and implementing protectionist measures to shield their economies from the shifting tides. It was as if the world collectively raised an eyebrow, concerned about this sudden intrusion of governments into the marketplace. So, how's the world changing now? Well, for starters, China is making big moves, envisioning a fairer global system based on cooperation. The Russia-Ukraine conflict shows that Russia is determined to bring back a united Soviet Union. And even though the UK might have left the European Union with Brexit, the EU is getting stronger. In the developing world, India is stepping up, especially after its successful moon landing. With groups like the African Union, Mercosur, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and ASEAN forming, it's a new era where countries are challenging the dominance of the US dollar. How did we transition to this multipolar world? It's a pretty intriguing story. After the tumultuous global financial crisis of 2008, our world evolved into a complex multipolar stage, a concept brilliantly presented by Josep Borrell, the Vice President of the European Commission. Right now, we're looking at a three-pole model, featuring the US, China, and the European Union. A natural question, why isn't Russia in the mix of this exciting economic battle? And that's a great question. According to Borrell, these three countries make up the current multipolarity due to some specific reasons. While Russia boasts military and political power, it falls a bit short on the economic front to be part of this trio. Currently, it's more of a Sino-American duo that's reshaping the world. And the European Union, with just the right economic influence, acts as a bridge between these two giants. The three-pole model doesn't capture the full complexity. it doesn't account for the evolving dynamics of emerging blocs and strategic partnerships with military and political significance. Many Asian countries, for example, are embracing capitalism while breaking free from colonial legacies, forming alliances like BRICS and G7. It's a dynamic evolution in the global landscape. So how does China's rise fit into all of this? With the world shifting towards Asia, China sees the opportunity to establish bilateral trade networks, with the ASEAN as its biggest partner. In the world of capitalism, it doesn't take long to create new power blocks. As Europe's colonial agencies crumbled, its former colonies, like India and Indonesia, became massive domestic markets. When Goldman Sachs wrote about emerging world economies uniting in 2001, he probably didn't expect Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa to actually unite. The improving Sino-Russian relations, China's Belt and Road Initiative, the creation of the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, and the New Development Bank all point towards multilateralism taking center stage. Although these five nations are completely different in ideologies, China and Russia have authoritarian systems, while Brazil, India, and South Africa are deeply democratic. That's why the latter three formed their own trilateral forum, called the IBSA Dialogue Forum. You'd ask, with such differences, how do they even work together? That's the beauty of multipolarity. Despite their differences, these nations agreed on one thing. Emerging economic powerhouses should have a greater say in global economic matters. In their 2009 joint statement, they made strong declarations about navigating unanimous financial policies for the benefit of not just themselves, but almost every other nation in the world. For instance, they didn't like how the World Bank's president was always American, or how, despite a democratic process, some European figure always ended up as the managing director of the IMF. They felt that Western economies getting bigger voting quotas in international forums undermined the ideal of equality, and it all hinges on the strained relationship between China and India. The only thing standing in the way of the perfect BRICS unity are the ongoing disputes and clashes over minor border issues. Aside from these two, there are a couple more working models of multipolarity to consider. First, there's the civilization model, which suggests that for the world economy to thrive, all nations must come together and cooperate. This means forging partnerships among Commonwealth nations, Russia, China, India, Southeast Asia, the Arab world, and Latin America. However, this model remains more of a dream, as we've only seen regional alliances so far, with global cooperation still a distant goal. Analysts argue that any nation aspiring for real power must seek a strategic partnership with either Russia or China. In today's geopolitical landscape, these two nations hold significant influence, and the United States isn't the sole puppeteer anymore. Even though the three-pole model considered the EU a crucial factor in multipolarity, the reality is a bit different. The EU has lost some of its luster. Its alliances now lead toward the US, thanks to NATO. With NATO's objective of expanding, it's evident that the EU's strings are being pulled from Washington. There's not much the EU can do independently. And let's not forget that with AI revolutionizing the world, we're in a new era of cybersecurity and information sharing. The entire geopolitical landscape is shifting based on these technological influences. So perhaps there's a lesson to learn here. To make multipolarity actually work, countries not only need to collaborate, but also resolve their conflicts. After all, talking things out on the international stage is what helps everyone thrive. Because if they don't, things could go south, and we might find ourselves in a situation none of us want. World War III. In this high-stakes power struggle, every nation must tread carefully to avoid stepping on each other's toes.